Good morning and welcome to the Wednesday, January 19th, 2022 meeting of the Lake Havasu City Planning and Zoning Commission. If you'd please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Secretary, would you please call the roll?
Donald Bergen.
Here.
Dan McGowan. Chad Nelson.
Here.
Susanna Ballard. Here. Matthew Mitchell. Sam Levin. Gabrielle Medley.
Here.
David Diaz.
Here.
And Jim Harris.
Here. Ms. Ballard, would you please come and fill the one of the vacant spots here this morning? Okay, correspondence and announcements. Mr. Morris.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, thank you. You'll notice the room set up a little differently this morning. There is the Tri-City Council meeting just starting at 12:30. There may be setting up for that at about 11:30, so just keep that. We do have a little bit of a time constraint, but of course, we're going to feel free to move forward with our duties as required. The City Council at their last meeting did approve the rezone, the PD rezone on Lake Havasu Avenue North to the mixed-use general, not allowing storage units that the Planning Commission recommended approval for a month or so ago. So that went to the City Council, and they approved it unanimously, the same as your recommendation. And then we had a workshop for boards and commissions in Phoenix a month or so ago. They finally have the video ready for those, so each of you will receive an email with the links for those for the 3 different videos that are part of that workshop. Feel free to watch them at your leisure. That concludes staff's announcements. Thank you.
Okay, minutes of the last meeting and the prior meeting. I have 2 sets of minutes. Are there any additions, deletions, or corrections to those minutes by commissioners? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion to approve. Do we need to do them separately or can we do them jointly? Jointly? Okay. I need a motion to approve the minutes as written. Anybody?
I make a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
Second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion by Ms. Ballard and a second by Mr. Bergen to approve both sets of minutes as written. Any further discussion on the item? Let's go ahead and place your votes.
Motion passes 6-0.
Okay, let me first start by saying that this is a public hearing and there is a structured order to this proceeding. The city staff will present each item. There will be time for the commission to ask questions of the staff, and then the applicant will have the opportunity to present their case to the commission. That being done, we will then open the proceeding to the public for their questions and input. I would ask that anyone of the public that wishes to speak limit their trips to the podium and microphone to 1 only, keep all comments to less than 3 minutes, and to stay on point and not discuss subject matter that is not pertinent to the decision being considered here today. After public testimony is taken, I will then close the public hearing and bring the motion back to the table for city staff's recommendation, discussion amongst the commission, and eventually a motion to approve or disapprove. The first item on today's agenda is item number ID 21-3108. It is a request for a zone change for 6590, 6600, and 6700 Chenowith Drive and 1800 and 2000 Victoria Farms Road for 39.54 acres of property from light industrial / planned development, industrial, and agricultural preservation to manufactured home RMH district. Mr. Morris, your presentation, please.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, thank you. Here's the area map. The subject property is actually 3 properties and a portion of 2 others. They're located just east of Highway 95 with access off of both Chenowith Drive and Victoria Farms Road. There is a signal light at Highway 95 and Chenowith Road. The subject properties are vacant and undeveloped. They are located within the city's sewer service area, but they are not in the city's water service. They're part of the EPCOR water service area. The abutting properties are to the northwest are developed with storage units, and then the other properties to the north, east, and south are undeveloped. There is a RV subdivision a little bit to the north and a little bit west of the property. As you'd mentioned, the zoning, the subject properties are mixed zoning districts, a light industrial plan development, an agricultural preserve, and industrial zoning. The properties surrounding the property, the subject properties are a mix of light industrial and agricultural preservation zoning districts. The applicant recently submitted a general plan amendment to reclassify the properties from high-density residential to medium-density residential for this request. To high-density residential for this request. The general plan was amended and approved by the City Council on December 14th. That was the first step for this to allow this rezone application request. The applicant's letter of intent proposes a residential community aimed at addressing the current housing challenges that Lake Havasu city residents are facing. The community is planned to be about 350 housing units and accompanying amenities. Here's their conceptual proposed site map. Again, this is a conceptual plan. They're asking for the zoning to possibly develop this sort of development. This plan calls for 3 villages. The first village is showing some RV spaces, and there's a village 2 that's showing some tiny homes. Actually, there's 4 villages. Villages 3 and 4 are for manufactured homes. There's also showing a management office and a gated entry near the main entrance off of Victoria Farms Road. They have various amenities scattered throughout the development, such as a clubhouse, a pool, spa, cabanas, sports courts, etc. They're shown on this conceptual plan. These residential and accessory uses may be allowed in the manufactured home zoning district, which is the district they're asking for. So it's an applicable zoning district for the type of development they're showing on this conceptual plan. That concludes staff's presentation. The applicants here and the staff can answer any questions you have also. Thank you.
Okay. Are there any questions of the Commission of Staff, by the Commission of Staff? Hearing none, I'll ask the applicant to come forward. Please state your name for the record.
I'm Waylon Gates. We went through this presentation at the last Planning and Zoning meeting, so we didn't feel the need to go through a long, drawn-out presentation this time of the same information. I realize that not everybody was here for that, so I apologize that you're not able to see that. But really just want to be here to answer any questions and ask for your vote in favor of this.
Do we have any questions of the applicant by commissioners? Anybody at all? Thank you, Mr. Gates.
You're welcome.
All right, this is a public hearing, so I will now open it up to the public. Is there anybody in the audience, anybody in the public that wishes to speak on this item, either pro or con? Anybody at all? Please come forward, state your name for the record.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Steve Mint. I'm the president of the Property Owners Association for Havasu RV Resorts, right adjacent to the property here. And we've had some general discussion in our resort. The notice for this only went out to very small people because it's 350 feet from it, and it only captured a few of the residents in the community. So I did attend the first meeting, and I'll say the feedback. I've got 4 things I just wanted to present, and that is not in my backyard. You know, you hear that from, we have 397 property owners there. They understand the need for lower income residents here. They do. But they're also concerned about this long term, what it's going to do, impact the value of their property. So with that said, The other couple areas are the infrastructure, the concerns for egress and entrance to there. Victoria Farms Road is a very narrow road. You're adding 350 homes in there, average, 2 people. You got a lot of vehicles now that are going to be going in there. So in their design, I hope they take into consideration, they must take into consideration the additional traffic and how it's going to impact the other people in the area. The other was the impact of the floodplain. Part of our resort is in a floodplain. And as they move earth around, we're concerned about the impact it's going to have on our resort. And the last one is just give a heads up. We are also on EBCOR water, and that is an issue. Concerns about the impact it's going to have to us with water, and to have enough water and water pressure. And, EBCOR is a very difficult company to deal with and get responses from. So heads up on that. Thank you very much for listening to me.
Are there any questions of the speaker?
I have a question
Nelson.
of the speaker.
Yeah.
Mr. Mint, do you know, currently it's zoned light industrial?
Yeah.
Do you know all the uses of light industrial?
Generally speaking, yes.
So I guess my question is, if you know all the uses of light industrial, you know what could go there.
Yes.
You could have some very loud, noisy operations that would,
It could be, yes.
could really affect property values there. So I just wanted to know if you knew all of the uses of light industrial.
Yes.
Because effectively, this is a reduction in zoning.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. That's what I wanted to know.
Any other questions of the speaker? Thank you, Mr. Mint.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else in the audience that wishes to speak? Please come forward, state your name for the record.
Ken Watkins, one of the owners of Bulldog Disposal and Recycling at 6900 Chenowith. And we are against this rezoning for a number of reasons. Almost echoing similar concerns, but we are one of those companies that people complain about as not my backyard, a NIMBY syndrome. And so we are concerned that people would complain about what we do. We are zoned correctly for that location. We are concerned about the disappearance of industrial property in Lake Havasu City. The lot right behind us has been bought by a big lumber facility that will be going in there, which is just to the northeast of this proposed rezoning, along Victoria Farms. Once again, we're concerned that residents will complain about us. We've been there 6, 7, 8 years now. And we're afraid of that, what's going to happen because of that. And once again, back to the fact that we want progress for Lake Havasu City. But on the same token, there has to be some industrial. Businesses need to be able to relocate to supply all the supplies that are coming into Havasu for this growth. And this is an ideal place to keep it industrial and keep that zoning so businesses like ours can stay in that area. And that's all I have. Any questions?
Just one comment, excuse me. With regards to your concern about the complaints, you being there first, anybody who buys in here or relocates in here knows or should know that that facility, your facility, was there ahead of time. So the complaints should be a moot, point.
I agree. I agree, Mr. Speaker. But I wanted to go on public record that, that to bring that to light, that people should know that and understand that. There's a farther up Victoria Farms, there's a rock operation, grind. So there's lots of noise in the area already. I think we really need to keep this area industrial. So it gives opportunities for other companies to relocate here to Lake Havasu and keep that growth going.
Any other questions of the speaker? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else in the audience that wishes to speak on this item? Anybody at all? Hearing none, I will, Mr. Gates.
I just wanted to address a couple of their concerns because we're also concerned about those same issues, and we've been working on them. So we met with Steve when he came to the initial meeting that we had. We talked about this. We for sure want to work with them, and he knows that our intention is to work with them as well. He's representing his residents that have concerns, which we understand. A few things that we do want to address, though, the infrastructure, as part of any development, we're gonna have to do a traffic study and all of that and whatever improvements that are necessary, regardless of what's industrial or whatever we're building. Any additional traffic will be addressed. The floodplain is something that is a concern that we've been working with. We know that it's a concern of theirs. Something that I found out 2 weeks ago that it will be good for them to know and good for you guys to know is that FEMA has revised the floodplain in this whole area that should be a published revision shortly, which for FEMA, that means maybe within the year. The floodplain will actually address their community in a positive way, which is good news for them. And also, we're working with that new revision to make sure that our design will improve the flood characteristics of that whole area. So that's something that's just important for everybody to know. Obviously, the water concerns are, the whole southwest of the United States has those concerns. EPCOR claims they have plenty of water for this, as well as in order for any development here, industrial, residential, whatever it may be, there needs to be water there. Currently, there's very limited development up both Victoria Farm Road and Chenowith Road because everything that's north of Chenowith is in EPCOR Water District. There are no water facilities on any of the property that's to the east of the RV park or to the east of where Victoria Farm Road goes from Chenowith. So any development is going to require significant infrastructure to be possible. That's one of the biggest things that has held back development here, I believe, is that there really is an infrastructure there. Our development relies on the infrastructure that is at Victoria Farm Road, and everything inside of that, all the way to the east, is going to be built on our dime, not on somebody else's. And then as far as for Mr. Watkins, again, this is, in our view, a good place to do this type of development because of what it is. It's in an area that the airport affects there with noise. Bulldog, there's rock crushing. Obviously, the other property that's around here is zoned industrial and could also be very heavy use that could be not an ideal neighbor for a residential area. But also we're trying to find a piece of land. There's no other land in Lake Havasu City that is contiguous where we could do something like this. So we're running out of land on all ends. We believe that we need housing for people to work here. Otherwise, none of the industrial space is going to make sense for somebody if they can't have employees. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gates. Anybody else have any questions of Mr. Gates? Thank you, sir. All right, I've closed the public hearing, or I'm closing it now, and I'll bring it back to the table for staff's recommendations.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, thank you. Based on the findings, the Development Review Committee recommends the Planning Commission forward a recommendation of approval to the City Council for Land Use Action Number 21-3108, a zone change for 6590, 6600, and 6700 Chenowith Drive, and 1800 and 2000 Victoria Farms Road for 39.54 acres of property from light industrial plan development, industrial, and agricultural preservation to manufactured home, RMH district. And as a reminder, this item will go to the City Council's February 8th meeting with your recommendation. Thank you.
All right, we are at the table for discussion and or a motion, commissioners. Anybody? Mr. Bergen.
I have stated on some other items that the city is getting filled up with part-time residents. And this that's on the agenda right now, I think would really be designed for more and more part-time residents. And I cannot go along with that.
Thank you, Mr. Bergen. Anybody else? Mr. Diaz, did you have a comment?
So I believe that there's a stigma that some people have in their mind about manufactured home properties. And I've seen these types of properties in other cities that I've come across and I've actually lived in. And if they're done right, and everything I've seen so far on this property is going to be done right with the type of homes that they've talked about and the amenities and so forth. And I believe, I'm a strong believer, and I'll stand on this, that this is exactly what we need here to try to help alleviate the pressures of not having the type of properties or homes for our service industries in this town that have. We need some viable workforce housing, and this helps us get to that point. Is it going to be perfect? Probably not, but it's a good step in the right direction. So when we get to the point where we're going to vote on this, my vote is yes.
Is there anybody else that has any comments? Mr. Nelson.
I've attended a lot of the meetings on this project, and Mr. Bergen's his comment is definitely valid, but the intent of this project is to support the workforce. I don't know how the developers will mitigate that, but that's the intent of this project, is to keep people here. Not really attract new people, but to keep people here. So hopefully it will do its job. I'm hoping. We don't know what's going to happen, but that'll be up to the developers to try to mitigate that.
Any other comments or suggestions, questions? All right, we're at the table for a motion. Anybody?
I'd like to make a motion
Mr. Diaz?
to approve item number 21-3108 with staff's recommendations.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Diaz, a second by Mr. Nelson to approve ID number 21-3108 with staff's recommendations. Any further discussion on this item? We're at the table for discussion now. Hearing none, let's call for the question.
Motion passes 5-1.
Thank you and good luck. The next item on today's agenda is ID 22-3131. It's a request for a minor amendment to the future land use map of the city's general plan for 40 Retail Center Boulevard, Retail Center-2, Parcel B, to change the future land use designation from employment to medium-density residential. Mr. Morris, your presentation.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, thank you very much. Here's the area map. The subject property is just under 18 acres. It's currently vacant and undeveloped. It's located west of Highway 95 on Retail Center Boulevard, just south of the shops at Lake Havasu. The abutting properties to the north, west, and south are also vacant. There's an electrical substation down near the southwest corner of the property. The property to the east across Retail Center Boulevard is developed with a boat and RV sales use. There's city water and wastewater available at this subject property. The current zoning for the property is C2, which is general commercial, the same as the abutting zoning to the north, east, and south. The property to the west is in Mojave County, so this is right on the city limits, and that Mojave County designation for that property is commercial. The future land use map, which is the zoning map, which is the general plan land use map, is the subject of this request. This request is for changing that designation. So the subject property is on the upper left-hand corner of the map here. Since the subject property totals less than 40 acres and is considered to be outside the original platted area, the commission can review this as what's called a minor general plan amendment. The applicant's letter of intent asks to amend the city's general plan future land use map to facilitate the development of residential uses on this property. The general plan amendment is that first step. So once they receive an approval from the city council for a general plan amendment, then they're going to plan to move forward with a rezone request for the property. The applicant's letter of intent proposes an attainable housing development consisting of duplex and single-family dwelling units. The dwelling units will be 700 to 900 square foot in range with attached garages. Here's a little more zoomed-in area of the view of the current zoning map, the current general plan land use map showing the subject property. The general plan map designates all the property in the immediate area as employment, which is this kind of a purplish color. Again, the property to the west is in the county. The employment, the current designation is appropriate for uses like light manufacturing, research and development, professional office, and office showroom per the current general plan land use map designation. The requested medium density residential designation is intended to provide opportunities for a mix of housing options and densities. The growth projections and capacity section of the general plan discuss how future zoning changes relate to the future land use map. It suggests that changes may be made by the Planning Commission and City Council if the proposed land use zoning proposals are consistent with the other goals and policies of the general plan. There's a table in the general plan that indicates that there's about 2,600 total acres currently designated within the Lake Havasu City's incorporated area for employment, that is like industrial type uses. The lack of land dedicated to low-cost housing is a problem for many cities in Arizona, including Lake Havasu City. This proposal asks the city to consider changing our philosophy regarding affordable or attainable housing in this specific area by changing the designation to medium-density residential, thus paving the way to rezoning to begin to address the housing shortage. The existing platted area in the main part of town cannot adequately address the housing shortcomings that we have. Therefore, it's appropriate for the Planning Commission and City Council to consider how and where Lake Havasu City can address the housing issues in a more efficient manner. With that in mind, the proposed amendment is also in conformance with the goals and policies of the general plan. That concludes staff's presentation. Open any questions you may have, and the applicant is here also. Thank you.
Okay, are there any questions by commissioners of staff? Anybody? Mr. Nelson.
I just want to make a statement, not really a question, but a statement. Without seeing plans or anything like that, I mean, we need housing in general, but without seeing plans, prices, anything like that, I don't want it to come from the commission. I don't want it to look like the commission is passing something that's affordable housing, because we're not looking at plans, we're not looking at pricing or anything like that. So I just don't want the appearance from the community that the commission is pushing this along as affordable housing until we see more information on it. Another thing I would like to add is you've been on the commission, I've been on the commission for a long time. I've been in the building industry for a long time. So is Jim, and Susanna's witnesses as well. A lot of commercial or a lot of residential property that's been converted to commercial property, and
Vice versa.
yeah, and we've
Yeah, you said it backwards.
oh yeah, a lot of residential property that's been converted to commercial and storage units been built on. The other thing that we've seen in this town is R3, R2 property, which is, for multiplex properties, are typically bigger. And with the advent of RV garage homes, people have taken R3 lots where you could get maybe 6 to 10 structures and built one RV garage home. So I'm looking at this as a good thing. Where we could create some residential space and give back to residential space, but I just don't want it to come from planning and zoning that we're pushing this as affordable, because we don't know what it is yet.
Right.
Any other questions of staff? Okay, hearing none, is the applicant present? Would you like to come forward and make a presentation? State your name for the record, please.
Good morning, Commission. My name is Chris Stark. I'm one of the owners of this project. On the screen there, I have like some renderings and a little site plan preliminary of what we're proposing. Our intention is to do the amendment of the general plan to convert it from C2 to medium density housing, specifically attainable workforce housing. The project's going to consist of 1,000 square foot approximately garage with 700 to 900 square foot pre-manufactured home on either side of it to create almost like a duplex. We're trying to utilize this project and make it like an architecturally appealing project and not just your low income, pull in some manufactured homes and plop them down as close as you can. We want to make this project kind of appealing to the eyes and a nice project that's going to be benefit the community. This project's also going to help bring in workforce for the locals to obviously build it, as well as bringing in 136 families to help maybe boost the mall area that's kind of in dire need of some activity over there. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions of the speaker? Mr. Nelson.
So again, I think that this looks like an awesome project. I think, most people that live here recreate and have toys, and so the need for the garage is huge for like Havasu City. I'm afraid of calling this affordable housing because we don't know what the pricing is yet. I'm sure you don't either.
I mean, we have some ideas. We're looking like in the high 2s, low 3s, which is pretty much the cheapest house you're going to find here, especially with a nice, decent size toy storage garage for people's vehicles.
Yeah, that's great pricing for Lake Havasu for sure. So I'm definitely all for a project like this, especially because you're not going to have a bunch of stuff in the yard because they have nice garages. But I just want to be careful about the affordable housing part because we've had 600 square foot units that are approaching over $350,000 and there's no garage, or a 1-car garage. So I just want to be careful about, using that as a headline.
Are there any other questions of the applicant? Ms. Ballard.
Now, I have a question. If these units are relatively small in comparison, you say about 1,000 square feet for the garage and 700 square feet to 900 square feet, you think 700 or 900 square feet is a typical size for a family residence?
I think it's fairly decent. It's the 900 square foot is going to be a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, very spacious. The 700 is going to be a 2-bedroom, 2-bath facility. I think people are in this kind of what we're targeting is we're not targeting the person that wants to build 6,000 square foot house, 6,000 square foot garage. We're looking for something smaller they can afford, but they still have toys. They still have vehicles and stuff. They like to enjoy the activities in Havasu. So I think that's where we're going with this. It's definitely targeting the right area, the right people.
And thank you very much for that information. My question or my concern is with the 1,000 square foot garage and a small residential unit, whether this doesn't make it more appealing to people coming here looking for a second home and a place to store their toys. Does that, I know there's no way to control who you sell these units to. And if they're sold to investors, what our workforce housing really needs are good rental units, not only just units to buy, but we're really short in the rental. There's no rental units available. So I know you don't have any control over when you sell one of these properties, what the use is, but would there be anything in your, you're gonna have an HOA that runs this?
Yeah, that's correct.
And would there be anything in the HOA that prohibit them from, say, less than 30-day rentals or?
At that point, we haven't explored that option. We're kind of in the phase to make sure this even is something that we can proceed forward with, but that's definitely something we can entertain.
Right, thank you.
All right. Any other questions of the applicant?
I just want to add some. Yeah, I just want to add something else. So there's going to be storage units. Currently, I used to own the property to the south of 14 acres, which currently has storage condos being built on it. To the east, there's more storage condos being built, and to the north, there's more storage condos being built. So this project is going to be encompassed around a bunch of storage condos, metal buildings. So I really feel like this is a good spot for it. We currently do have plans, and we're ready to proceed with submitting those plans for storage condos, which my intention was to go that route. But in looking back and seeing what the needs of Havasu are, I really feel like this is going to be a much more benefit to the city of Lake Havasu.
All right, thank you.
I had one other question.
Mr. Nelson.
On your site plan. I'm seeing all the lots, and then there is a light gray area in the corner. What is that?
That's the electrical substation.
This is Substation.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. That was my only question.
Okay.
All right, thank you, sir. All right, I'll now open it up to the public. Is there anybody in the audience that wishes to speak on this item? Either pro or con? Anybody at all? I'm seeing none, so I'll go ahead and close the public hearing portion of the meeting and bring it back to the table for staff's recommendations.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, thank you. Based on the findings, the Development Review Committee recommends the Planning Commission forward a recommendation of approval to the City Council for Land Use Action 22-3131, a minor amendment to the future land use map of the city's general plan for 40 Retail Center Boulevard, Retail Center-2, Parcel B, to change the future land use designation from employment to medium-density residential. And as a reminder, this item will go to the City Council's February 22nd meeting with your recommendation. Thank you.
Okay, we are at the table for discussion and or a motion, commissioners. Anybody?
Yeah.
Mr. Bergen.
I have the same concern that I've been expressing. I can understand that part-time residents here, visiting here, that's fine. We need that for the economy of the city. But the far north part of our city is becoming entirely that. It's overwhelming up there. And if these non-residents after a while want to then become residents of the city full-time, that's fine, that's good. And do we have adequate that type of housing for them? I don't think so. And I have the same, therefore, concerns. Thank you.
Anybody else? We are at the table for discussion and or a motion. Ms. Ballard, I see you reaching.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion that we recommend approval to the City Council for land use action number 22-3131, a minor amendment to the future land use map of the city's general plan for 40 Retail Center Boulevard, Retail Center 2, Parcel B, to change the future land use designation from employment to medium density residential.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion by Ms. Ballard, a second by Mr. Nelson, to approve item number 22-3131 with staff's recommendations. Any further discussion on this issue? Mr. Diaz?
Yeah, before I vote with my fellow committee people, I'd like to just make a comment that going back to what Ms. Ballard was saying and some of her concerns is that we do have, this is good stuff, but we do have to figure out a way, if we can, working with City Council and with the developers here, and if they have an HOA, how to try to prevent people from buying these or just using them for vacation homes, and then we don't have it, then it's not affordable housing. I mean, it could be $100,000, but if someone's buying them just use it as a vacation home, it's not for our workforce. You know what I'm saying? So it's a step in the right direction, but that's just one thing we have to, I think, keep in mind as we approve these types of things. We need them, but we have to see if we could somehow bake that into the recipe.
There's a
Mr. Nelson.
There's only so much the developers can do. They can do certain things, but these housing is regulated by the government, the federal government. It's there's fair housing rules that they have to abide by. So I would also recommend that developers look into the fair housing rules, see how they can offer this to full-time residents first, and primary homeowners, that this doesn't become second homes or all investment property. We are going to see that, but they have to follow the fair housing rules. But I think that we all agree, and to go back to Mr. Bergen, I think we need to have a conversation. How does this dig deeper? What can we do as a planning and zoning commission to so it's just not going to be a denial every time, but how can we help them? What can we recommend that they do so we get it on record, so when they bring these things to the table, that they're trying to address your concerns before they bring it to the table. So I think we need to work on that and provide that to the community, so they know when they're bringing things to the table that they're trying to address your concerns as well.
Any further discussion? All right, then let's call for the question.
Motion passes 5-1.
Congratulations, good luck. The next item on today's agenda is ID 22-3130. This is a request to amend the Parking in Common Master Plan for 3337 Maricopa Avenue, Tract 2217, Block 19, Lot 13, to allow vehicular access for a drive-through coffee use in the commercial Southgate District. Mr. Morris, your presentation.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, thank you again. The subject property is located on the south part of town, off of Maricopa, at the corner of Maricopa Avenue and Lobo Drive. The property is currently vacant. The zoning map shows the property is zoned commercial Southgate District. The abutting properties to the south, to the east, and to the west are also zoned commercial Southgate District. They also happen to have their parking matches the approved parking in common plan, those adjacent properties. The parking in common master plan for that area, so Lobo Drive here, Maricopa along the bottom, shows 2 rows of parking, 2 travel aisles with 4 total rows of parking, and access off of Lobo Drive. The subject property is about 100 feet wide by 250 feet deep. It's about twice as large as the abutting properties. This request is to amend this one to allow vehicle access for a coffee drive-through. The proposed drive-through lanes will disrupt the layout of this master plan, so a parking in common amendment is required, and that's reviewed by the Planning Commission. Here's the proposed site plan that this applicant has provided. In this, the Maricopa Avenue is on the left and Lobo Drive is on the bottom of this map. The letter of intent proposes a drive-through coffee shop for the property. So in the back, 100 feet is typically the buildable area of the lot. In here is where the proposed building is located. They show a drive-through service window at the back side of the building with at least 4 parking or queuing spaces wrapping around the building. It also shows access via new driveways along Maricopa Avenue and Lobo Drive. It also shows internal drive aisles connecting the adjacent properties. So the properties to the above on this map, there's existing drive lanes. They're proposing to keep those drive lanes intact and follow them through onto the front of the parking area of the subject property. The driveway locations will be fully reviewed as part of design review for the project. And per the development code, a drive-through requires a minimum of at least 3 stacking spaces. They're showing at least 4 here, so that appears to meet the development code. Of course, design review for compliance with the development code and any traffic analysis will be required to ensure compliance with all applicable city codes, including where these driveway locations are, where the parking and the vehicle stacking requirements will be met, And permits, of course, will be required for any work before the property is developed. Well, that concludes staff's presentation. The applicant is here is in the audience also. Thank you.
Any questions of staff by commissioners? Anybody at all? All right, is the applicant present? Would you like to make a presentation? Okay, then we will skip that portion. I'll take it straight to the public hearing portion. Is there anybody in the audience that wishes to comment on this item? Anybody at all, pro or con? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the table for staff's recommendations.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Based on the findings, the Development Review Committee recommends approval of an amendment to the Parking in Common Master Plan for 3337 Maricopa Avenue, Tract 2217, Block 19, Lot 13, to allow vehicular access for a drive-through coffee use in the CSGD district with the following conditions. 1, the project shall substantially match the site plan submitted with the application. 2, the design review and traffic analysis are required to ensure compliance with all applicable city codes, including driveway locations, parking, and vehicle stacking requirements. And 3, if the property is not developed per this approval, it shall be developed to conform to the original master parking and common plan. Thank you.
Okay, we are at the table for discussion and or a motion, but I have a question of staff first. Your request or requirement number 2, it says design review and a traffic analysis. To what extent do you want a traffic analysis?
That's a good question. It's going to depend upon what sort of analysis the Public Works Department is looking for. Typically, a traffic analysis is not full-blown. It's more of just a general overview of how the traffic
analysis study is rather costly.
There are different levels of that. That's correct. Very good. We'd be looking at whatever the engineering department, Public Works, we think would be the minimum requirement that they'd be looking for to ensure that this is not going to cause any traffic issues on the
So basically,
roadways.
to restate what you just said, basically for the applicant to get with city engineering and take a look at their traffic concerns.
That's correct.
Okay, just wanted that clarification.
Very good.
Any further discussion by commissioners? Mr. Nelson, I see you reaching.
I'd like to make a motion to approve ID 22-3130, a request to amend the Parking in Common Master Plan for 3337 Maricopa Avenue, Tract 2217, Block 19, Lot 13, to allow vehicular access for drive-through coffee use in the Commercial Southgate District with staff's recommendations. And I just want to add for the record that I haven't seen, since I've been on the commission, anything in the Southgate District that I think this is a great presentation, and they haven't tried to disrupt the parking in common. They've tried to utilize it. And so I'm happy to see something come through where they try to utilize
Let's reserve your comments for later. That's not part of the motion, is it?
I know, but I'm just saying.
Okay.
It's the first time since I've been here.
So we have a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
I have a second.
We have a second by, was that Susanna?
Right.
Ms. Ballard?
Need to speak on
Okay.
that.
We have a motion to approve ID 22-3130 with staff's recommendations by Mr. Nelson and seconded by Ms. Ballard. Further discussion on the motion. Mr. Bergen?
We have had a couple of projects fairly recently that I felt could be a negative effect on bashes. Well, this one may too. However, I think it is quite okay. It does fit quite well into this particular area. Yeah, it may affect some of the business in bashes, but that's the way competition works. And I had one other thing I wanted to mention is that the department zoning sign was down again. And that's the property for sale sign was up, but our sign was down again. But yeah, I in this particular case feel that it fits the new spacing very well.
Thank you, Mr. Bergen. Any other comments, discussion of the motion? Mr. Diaz.
I just wanted to say that I agree with Mr. Nelson that the parking and common stuff is taken care of, and I want to thank you for being a young entrepreneur in Lake Havasu. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Okay, let's call for the question.
Motion passes 6-0.
Congratulations and good luck. All right, the next item on today's agenda is ID 22-3132. This is a request for a major conditional use permit for 35 Retail Center Boulevard, tract 2392, block 1, parcel G-1, to allow outdoor storage of various electric and gas related equipment in the general commercial C2 district. Mr. Morris, your presentation.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, thank you. The subject property here is shown outlined in red is about just over 8 acres. It's located on Retail Center Boulevard, just south of the shops at Lake Havasu. It also fronts on both Showplace Avenue and Airport Center Boulevard, and it backs to Highway 95 right away, but does not have access onto Highway 95. The property falls gradually from the east to the west. There is a drainage way that flows through the northern portion of the property, and then it curves along the boundary of the property and goes under Retail Center Boulevard. The abutting properties are all zoned C2, General Commercial, or C2 PD. Across Highway 95 is the airport, and it's zoned AP, Agricultural Preservation. Here's the site plan that was submitted by the applicant. And the applicant's letter of intent states that the Unisource Electric Services is currently in the process of purchasing the property to develop as an operations center that will consolidate the company's office and warehouse functions into one single location. The plan also includes outdoor storage of various electric and gas-related equipment. Per our permitted uses table, the proposed office and warehouse uses are allowed by right in the C2 zoning district. However, the outdoor storage portion of the request requires a conditional use permit, in this case, a major conditional use permit to be reviewed by the Planning Commission. The areas of outdoor storage include transformers and switches and gears, pole racks, and some other items, which I'll show in more detail as we go through the presentation. The site plan submitted with this request shows 2 development areas separated by the drainage way. So the northern area is where the proposed office building is, and then there's a drainage way that goes between it and the rest of the property. We'll get into that in a little more detail here next. So here's the site plan kind of laid over an aerial. You'll see the northern area here, the drainage way, and then the southern area, which is the larger portion of the property. So here's the northern area in more detail. It's accessed off of Showplace Avenue by a new driveway. It includes a proposed office building and associated covered and open parking spaces here. And then we're getting to what I call the southern area of the property. It's accessed by a separate driveway off Showplace Avenue. It has a proposed warehouse in the northeast portion of that property. It also includes staging area, some fleet and support vehicle parking areas, both covered and uncovered. And then we get to what we call the west portion of the property. This is where the storage area is located. That has, this area is accessed from that same entry off of Showplace Avenue, and then an exit there, and then an entrance there, and then an exit onto the other Retail Center Boulevard to the west of the property. This is showing an electrical 3-sided conduit storage, roofed storage building. a fuel area, a wash bay, and a maintenance building, the various areas of outdoor storage. These outdoor storage areas are the subject of this request, and they include the transformer areas, switches and gear wires, some pole racks, scrap poles, some gas piping and sleeving racks, and then some miscellaneous outdoor storage, and then trailers on the west portion of this property. So this is generally the storage area, outdoor storage area of this request. The development code includes some development standards for outdoor storage as far as screening and landscaping that will apply to this particular development. So here's the entire site plan. Based on the review of the development standards, staff suggests the commission may want to use the following conditions of approval as a starting point for this project. We would suggest a minimum of a 6 foot, outlined in red or shown in red here, a 6 foot tall solid screening wall along the subject property, along the west, the north, which is the south side of the wash that goes, or the drainage way that goes through the property, and then continuing across the proposed warehouse building, and then down along Highway 95 frontage. And then along the southern portion of the property, a minimum of at least a 6 foot tall, at least 60% opaque screening wall, and then landscaping the first 10 feet of the property, which is shown here in green, with the required number of trees and shrubs along all those rights of way, including the Highway 95 right of way. These suggestions meet the minimum requirements of the screening and street frontage landscaping standards of the development code. The screen walls are shown on the proposed plan, so they're already showing these red walls on the proposed plan, as well as the southern chain link with slats, I think, wall on the plan. The commission may impose additional conditions regarding landscaping, buffering, lighting, parking, traffic circulation, whatever you feel may be appropriate to help buffer the use of this request, of this outdoor storage. Some additional conditions for discussion may include additional street frontage landscaping, tree requirements, and/or enhancing the screen wall to help buffer the outdoor storage areas. That concludes staff's presentation. Open any questions you may have. And the applicant is attending via Zoom. Thank you.
Okay, any questions of staff by commissioners? Anybody at all? Mr. Nelson.
I just have a question. I mean, the commission, it's been going on for years now. We've been trying to develop and help develop this Northgate area, but we've also been trying to protect it. And so I guess my question of staff is, what conversations are we having when people come in and want to do something like this, and just saying, hey, be careful. This is something that probably isn't going to pass.
Well, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, thank you for the question. When people come in to ask staff about, hey, I've got this property, it's zone C2 in this case, here's what I'd like to develop on it. We would then go to the permitted uses table, work with the applicant, explain what could or could not be allowed. We would look at the development code and go off of whatever the development code is saying. We would caution them that in the north area of town, it's an area that is of an interest to the Planning Commission and the City Council and the citizens. So they should be maybe a little more aware of it's an area that is under some scrutiny, that in no way determines what staff tells them what is and is not able to be allowed in that area. But also let them know in this case, if this conditional use permit is required, then the reason for a conditional use permit is that we're trying to minimize any potential impacts this use may have in the area. And so the Planning Commission is certainly able to add additional stipulations or conditions to the conditional use permit to help modify or offset any impacts they feel may happen to the area. So if someone comes in, we don't tell them, well, you shouldn't do this here. We tell them how this is what you want to do. Okay, well, here's how it could happen, but we would advise them that this is an area under scrutiny, and so they should be aware of that.
Thank you, because I think you and the applicant have put together a nice presentation. So thank you for that.
Any other questions of staff by commissioners?
I have a question.
Ms. Ballard?
The 6-foot-tall opaque screen wall, tell me a little bit of, what is the material of a screen wall?
Well, some ways to do that could be chain link with slats is the most common way. There are also ways that you can have maybe a wooden fence with gaps between the slats. I think typically the most common way is chain link with slats, but the applicant is attending. They may have more specific plans about exactly what that is. I believe they're calling out for some sort of chain link slats in this case.
So they're entertaining a landscape, which the landscape could be dense or it could be minimal. And then they're talking about a wooden or a chain link screen wall across the street from a property that we've just talked about going residential. I'm wondering if this project was approved, if that type of a screen wall is pertinent, or should it be a block wall? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ballard. I too have a couple of comments, suggestions, whatever. I can sympathize with Unisource needing a storage facility, laydown yard, and warehouse facility. I'm thinking, though, that this is kind of a reach, a little more industrial than what that location was planned for. Should this go forward, we can put stipulations on it through the conditional use permit. I would submit that a 6-foot-tall block wall is not sufficient enough, that I realize the city standards limit block walls to 6 feet, but I think in this case, we might make an exception and take it up to like 8 feet. And then pretty much I would be in favor of surrounding the entire property with the block wall, similar to what they do with the substations. So those are all the comments that I have. Any other comments?
I have one additional comment.
Ms. Ballard.
On the switches, gear, and wire and electrical conduit, what would be overhead? Is there overhead lines that are coming into this project? What's conceived to be overhead coming into this area?
I believe those are areas just set aside for storage of those sorts of equipment and materials.
Okay.
I don't believe there's any electrical lines coming in
All
there.
right, thank you.
Another question that might be asked is, I don't see any location on this site for training, like having poles to climb and work on and so forth. Something like that would certainly be detrimental to the views and site corridors, I would submit. But anyway, anybody else? All right, is the applicant available?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this is Guy Eklund from Unisource. Can you folks hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead, Mr. Eklund.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Commission, for having us today and reviewing our application. My name is Guy Eklund with Unisource Energy. We have our administrative offices are at 2749 Maricopa Avenue, Lake Havasu City. We are of course, the electric and gas utility provider for many areas in Arizona and Lake Havasu. We currently have 2 different locations, one for our administrative offices and one for our warehousing operation. We've kind of found that we're outgrowing those facilities, and for several months we've been researching to find an appropriate commercial location to consolidate our facilities, and when our real estate agent found this one, we were very excited about it. And I'd like to thank Mr. Morris for helping us with this process and helping us with his recommendations. And I just want to let the commission know we're here to work with the commission. We would really like to be in this area with our operation. I heard you on the concerns on screening, and if we need to do a little bit more work on our plan, we're happy to consider recommendations. So I've got with me Christopher Ortiz E. Pino. He's with Unisource. He's a planner with Unisource. And our site plan we hired the services of the architectural and planning firm Selberg and Associates, who was very familiar with the area and designed the site plan that you have before you. So we are here for any questions.
I have a question of you. Are you going to have any training facilities there with regards to climbing or anything like that?
There have been no facilities proposed for that on our site plan.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions of the applicant by commissioners? Ms. Medley.
So you are open to changing the CMU wall around the property then?
To which portion specifically?
I think what Jim.
I would suggest the
You said
entire perimeter as block.
The entire perimeter on the south side of the wash?
The entire
project.
Okay, even the administrative building north of the wall, or north of the wash.
Mr. Morris, would you put that site plan back up?
So here's the northern portion. Here's the drainage way that separates the northern portion from the balance of the property to the south. This proposed building shown here is their office building with their parking, covered in some surface parking. They're also showing an art display and a little outdoor gathering. But again, these are typically things that would be allowed without a conditional use permit. But of course, given the site overall, the commission has the authority to do whatever you feel would be best.
I would suggest that the wall need not incorporate the northern portion. If it worked its way along the southern edge of that drainage would be sufficient. That's my thinking. Ms. Medley, anything else?
So just for clarification, if you don't mind, Chairman, that's the area shown in red here is the CMU wall. And then there's a dashed brown at the bottom, which is the chain link you're suggesting.
I'm suggesting that entire location, including the chain link, should be, in order to mitigate this, let's call it what it is, it's an industrial use, and screen it. That's my thinking as this commissioner.
I want to make sure that the applicant was aware of that too.
And 8 feet high.
At least. What, Mr. Eklund, question for you. What is the standard height of your substation walls?
I've seen them vary from different heights. So I don't know that we have a standard height.
I've seen them as high as 10 feet to screen from neighborhoods and other zoning uses. And that's having come from a former employment situation with a utility.
I just want to make a statement.
Mr. Nelson.
That, for you and your team that have done a great job in this presentation, by the way. But I don't know if you know, just a few months ago, we denied a U-Haul storage facility that was much nicer. And the only thing they were storing outside was, going to be nice, travel trailers and things of that nature. But that was denied just a few months ago. And so I feel bad, I can't be for this. And I feel bad about that because you've invested a lot of time and energy into this. So I just wanted to make that statement.
I have another question. Should this not go forward, what other options do you have, if any?
Well, Mr. Chairman, we will continue operating out of our current locations until we are able to identify and locate a suitable site for this operation. And like I said before, if the commission has recommendations on the wall, we are open to the commission's recommendation. We would really like to be part of this commercial community in this area.
Mr. Eklund, once again, what's your position with the company?
I am a right-of-way agent with Unisource Energy, which in our other company is Tucson Electric Power, and I am zooming you from our offices in Tucson today.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions of the applicant, commissioners? Anybody at all? Okay, I'm going to take this to the public. This is a public hearing. Is there anybody in the audience that wishes to speak on this item? Anybody at all, pro or con? Let's start with Mr. Sampson. Please state your name for the record.
Hi, Rob Sampson. Technically, I could have came up here with the applicant side of this because I represent Selberg Associates. As you heard from Guy, we're the architecture firm that's representing this property. A couple of things I wanted to clarify for you. The JR Motors, we're also the architect firm for that, is adjacent on the south side of this property. So there will be motorhomes of varying sizes that'll be up against that fence line. So if it does go forward, we're looking at every dollar that's spent for this obviously gets passed on to the ratepayers. And it's not like there's a lot of options for power and gas in this area. So anything that we put on this user is going to come back to us as the rate-paying public. I live here in Lake Havasu. I pay my power bill with pride every month now that we're working with Unisource. But it's something I want to think about. It's certainly, I think, the way the mall has evolved, we used to be a retail-focused mall, and that hasn't worked. There's a lot of things in this mall that, I would have loved to have seen, like everybody else, a Costco and a Target and the JCPenney be successful, and all of these other uses, but they haven't been. Now we have omni-channel type businesses that are going in there. This is an opportunity to use a piece of bare dirt that's been bare dirt since the existence of the city and bring 100 people to work every day that are going to go in and out of there that can start servicing restaurants in that area that are underutilized, and certainly have the opportunity to bring more to the retail area. For me personally, I live in the center of Lake Havasu. When I go to Walmart, I feel like I'm taking a full day trip, and I know that that's not a unique mentality anymore. So these are things I think will benefit the area. I know that Mr. Nelson has some concerns, and we certainly understand those, but I think looking at this and changing the narrative, maybe we're bringing more people into this area. We're going to bring a population of people into that area that will be highly paid, highly skilled, that will be using the restaurants, using the stores, and bringing that opportunity. And it's not another storage facility. This is a employment-based. They may not be bringing in tax dollars to that extent, but what they are bringing in is people who buy goods and services. So that's something to think about. I really think that would be a benefit for this area.
Any questions of the speaker? Mr. Nelson.
I agree with everything that you said, everything. But I just feel that this is a square peg, round hole situation. And we're having to really protect this north gate where people drive into our city, and we're trying to protect what they see, how our city is represented right when you drive in. And that's all. I think it's unfortunate for me anyway, that so much time and energy has been invested into this spot that is trying to be, protected. But everything that you said, the people, the jobs, the company, I have no complaints with Unisource. They've been a great company for Lake Havasu. It's just kind of puts us in a bad position, this one lot.
The other thing I'd like to mention, just in rebuttal of sorts, is the office building that they're planning on putting up is a Class A style
Oh, yeah,
office building.
I know it would be.
You know, so
Yeah,
these are
sure.
things that we certainly don't want to be the ugly stepchild of the neighborhood. We want this to be something that is a complement. And I think with the uses as you're transitioning, if this was at the face of the mall, say the north side of it, where it would be the first impact that our visitors and our even our residents see as they come back into town, it would be one thing. But we have kind of a transitionary zone here. We've got storage facilities that are literally adjacent to this property. You know, we're really going from a retail space. We have this transitionary utility space, and then we're going into the storage space. It really is not as far a stretch, I think, mentally for the public to see this happening the way it is. I understand protecting the mall. I would love to see this mall be successful and flourish, but we're working on projects that are completely not retail based in this mall. Many doctors and medical offices. You know, there's a number of uses that are not, you know, this mall is not working. That's the thing that we have to talk about. And with all due respect, I love what the Planned Economic Development Commission has done here. I love what's, you know, I'm proud to be a part of Lake Havasu, but I think we have to look at using the land to its best component. What'll happen here eventually is we'll have someone that comes in and says, Mr. Chairman, Board, please let us put a storage facility here. And how many times are we going to keep saying, no, Costco's not the option for us right now. This is a viable option that really is going to put a lot of dollars in a beautiful building up, as well as a nice industrial space, screened as you like. All of the things that you're talking about, you know, transformer storage is about 6 to 8 feet tall. Many of the buildings that you'll see here are not going to be visible from the street level. They'll be seen from the highway potentially, but not from the street level. But that's the way the whole mall is right now.
Mr. Morris, would you please put up the map of the area location showing surrounding properties? Let's just try and identify some of the surrounding properties. So you've got your RV sales and storage below that property, south of that property.
Just RV sales.
And storage. They've got all of their RVs stored there, and they're in the process of building a building there right now for service as well. What else is slated for the properties across the street?
All right, so over here across Retail Center Boulevard, there's design review been completed for storage units, about 100 or so, 100 and some odd storage units on this piece of property. We just heard a request to amend the general plan for this for potential residential for the property just south of that, where the storage units are. That applicant said if the residential component didn't work out, he had plans for storage units on that. To the south, just across, so here's the JR Motors, and then across the wash, there's storage units under construction right here on these 3 lots. Here's the Home Depot. Next to it, there are storage units in design review for this lot. So on this west side of Retail Center Boulevard, there's storage units and/or a residential component proposed. Of course, there's the RV sales and a new building going in proposed for the south of this subject property. And then north of the property is the mall itself with a vacant out parcel and a number of other vacant out parcels on fronting Highway 95 or backing onto Highway 95. Does that help?
I know that I'm biased in this, but as a citizen of Lake Havasu, I don't feel this is a detriment. Yes, I am biased, but this is something I really think is a good use for this, and it'll help more businesses be attracted to coming to the mall, in my opinion.
Any other questions of the applicant? Okay, thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Eklund, go ahead.
No questions here, Mr. Chairman.
Okey doke.
Thank you.
Anybody else that wishes to speak on this item, please come forward and state your name for the record. Tiffany.
Good morning, Tiffany Wilson. So while I have to agree, I feel like it's foolish to stand here and kind of concur with everybody, but the mall isn't what it used to be, the surrounding area, whatever, but as a community resident for 20 years, I find it hard to take our highway frontage and put this sort of business there. Should this move forward, what are the allowable heights on this? I'm sorry?
25 feet.
So even with an 8-10 foot wall, we're still looking at what is proposed to be a storage facility of industrial equipment. My personal opinion is I feel that we still have enough allowable space within the community that we can maybe better find a better suited location.
May I ask you a question?
Yes.
Where would they find, and I know this is, hypothetical, but being a realtor yourself, where do you think they might be able to find additional space?
Part of the conversation that we just had earlier today was, the Chenowith and Victoria Farms area that is fully industrial without knowing what Unisource needs and square footage and all that kind of stuff proposed. But there's still plenty of land right there that's not highway frontage that would give them what I believe to be the same ability to put up what they're proposing.
Any other questions of the speaker? Mr. Diaz?
Yeah, I have to concur. I don't want to, a lot of people come up and talk to us, not just here, but out in the street, they kind of given up on the mall, and I'm not one of those people. I think down the road it's going to be viable. We're going to get the right type of people in there. If we put something like this right there, it's just kind of like announcing defeat. I love Unisource also, but I think there's plenty of areas with working with the right people. Maybe they could find another spot, but you're going to put this industrial, commercial storage unit, and we just, as Mr. Nelson said, we just denied, and along with the city council, denied U-Haul. And this is kind of like, it's not the same height because they wanted to put a 45-foot thing there, but it's still, I don't think it marries the mall with what needs to go there. That's just my own personal opinion, but there's got to be, we're going to find the right project there. It just takes some time, but we shouldn't give up so soon. That's my thoughts.
I think unfortunately, right, our community is stuck with these decisions of this chicken and egg deal. What comes first, the chicken or the egg, right? So we have this housing need, we have this commercial need. With housing comes commercial. But unfortunately, it's a give and take, and I understand and I agree wholeheartedly. I think it's a great plan, and I wish that I didn't feel the way that I did about just the highway frontage. If it was back that portion, I'd have no argument, but thank you.
Anybody else? Thank you, Ms. Olson. Is there anybody else in the audience that wishes to speak on this item? Anybody at all? Hearing none, I'll go ahead and close the public hearing portion of the meeting and bring it back to the table for staff's recommendations.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, thank you. Based on the findings, the Development Review Committee recommends approval of item number 22-3132 for a major conditional use permit for 35 Retail Center Boulevard, Tract 2392, Block 1, Parcel G1, to allow outdoor storage of various electric and gas-related equipment in the General Commercial C2 District with the following conditions. 1, the development shall substantially match the site plan as presented in this request. 2, a minimum 6-foot tall solid CMU wall, or screen wall, shall be provided along Retail Center Boulevard, the southern edge of the drainage way, and the Highway 95 right-of-way. 3, a minimum 6-foot tall, 60% opaque screen wall shall be provided along the southern property line. And 4, landscaping shall meet all the requirements of the Development Code, including the 10-foot landscape buffer along with the required shrubs and trees along all rights-of-way, including Highway 95. Thank you.
Okay, Commissioners, we are at the table for discussion and/or a motion.
I have one just question.
Ms. Ballard.
I didn't see anywhere in here what the total property size was. How many acres?
The property is 8.18 acres.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else?
Just
Nelson.
a topic of discussion, again, for the record, items that come before the commission that want, can you pull up the site plan one more time? So I agree with a lot of things that the applicant and both Mr. Sampson have said, but we know that the proposed Unisource building, it's going to be nice. It'll probably be white, and they're their logo looks good, and you know, no complaints there. And then they have a proposed warehouse, you know, and if that warehouse is more, you know, turned to cover the entire length of the 95 frontage, with some, you know, building standards and architectural review, you know, something like this may work as long as that highway frontage is protected. But it looks like, you know, there's going to be covered fleet vehicles over there that it's all going to be visible from the highway. You know, and that stuff we want to screen from the highway. Now down here where we've got the opaque screen wall, which we're saying, you know, would need to be 8 or 10 foot block wall. You've got the RV sales down there, and then you've got this curve coming out of the mall. You know, and you've got, you know, you know, as long as the wall covered that area and you had landscaping out, I mean, it could work. It's just not laid out to protect that north gate entrance, you know, and it could be. So I would recommend that, you know, I don't know what to recommend. I mean, my honest opinion is recommend to deny this for now, but come back with a different design. I mean, obviously you know, if Unisource is running out of space, we need to try to help them. But I mean, you've got trucking going on in here, and all that's going to be visible, you know, from the highway. And this commission is really trying to protect that north gate.
Anybody else? Mr. Diaz, do I see you reaching? No? All right, then I'm going to speak. This is a difficult one, for me anyway. Unisource and their parent company, Tucson Electric, I believe, it does a pretty good job here in this town, and we need to try and accommodate them. However, this site, as Mr. Nelson and some of the others have said, is a little problematic. I know exactly what's going in that yard, having been a former electric utility employee for 10 years, and worked in yards like that. But I think it can be mitigated with a tall fence. Would I rather see a Target or a Costco or something like that? Absolutely. But it hasn't come to fruition. We do need to keep in mind, though, that by giving up this property, we've given up that opportunity for that location. And it's not our property to give up anyway. We're just here to agree or disagree on a conditional use permit. I believe Unisource does a good job, and they would keep this yard, you know, rather pristine. But the bottom line, there's going to be a lot of equipment in there that can be seen above an 8 or a 10-foot wall. Your line trucks, you know, things like that. I like the idea of the potential redesign and screening Highway 95 in appearance with the warehouse somehow. And I do like the idea of changing item number 2 to a minimum of an 8-foot height and possibly even a 10-foot height. A large area like that 10-foot wall will diminish in size from a distance, but it will help a lot in screening. And I also like the idea of potentially doing the CMU wall across the southern boundary so that vehicles driving up 95 won't be able to see into the yard also. Just see the tops of the vehicles. But again, this is a difficult decision. My initial thought was no. But I'm thinking that it could be made to work. So those are my comments. Anybody else? Mr. Nelson.
I'm going to make a motion I'm going to make a motion to deny this action, ID 22-3132. So a yes vote would be to deny.
I second that.
We have a motion by Mr. Nelson, a second by Mr. Diaz to deny item number 22-3132. And a yes vote would be a denial. Any further discussion on this item? Anybody at all? Let's call for the question. This is a tough one.
We have a tie.
What happens in the instance of the motion fails? It has to have a majority. Good luck in potentially redesign or whatever you guys decide. Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, guys.
I'm sorry, wait, Mr. Chair, in the event you may make another motion, somebody may make another motion if you're not satisfied. I mean, the motion was a recommendation to deny, that motion failed. So then this is where you send a recommendation to the city council. Well, there was a tie and the result of that is a failure of that motion, but you're not sending a very clear message to council on exactly what your recommendation is because it's a tie. And that's okay. That can be the information that's presented to council. But we've had that before where we've had a tie and it's not clear what you want your direction to be to city council. And ultimately, they look to you to provide some guidance in these types of situations.
Do you want me to
at this point,
redo the motion?
No, not yet. At this point, we're still at the table for another motion if necessary. And that motion can speak to specifics with regards to the conditions, et cetera. Mr. Morris, you have a comment?
Yes, Mr. Chairman and City Attorney, just to make clear, this is a conditional use permit application. And conditional use permit applications, typically the Planning Commission is the deciding body on that. If for some reason it's appealed, it would go on to the City Council. So this is a matter that typically is decided by the Planning and Zoning Commission with an appeal to the City Council available.
I'm sorry. Thank you, Luke. So that makes it even more important because now the decision for you is final. And so now you just made a motion to deny it and that failed. So meaning it was successful. So I think you might want to discuss it a little bit more.
So we are still at the table, understanding that this does not go to City Council except by appeal if they're not happy with our decision. So we're still at the table for
discussion right now.
Yeah, we're at discussion. Mr. Diaz.
The motion
failed. But we're still at the item for discussion.
So right now, all we're doing is we're giving them advice to come back to us.
Well,
technically.
Not technically.
Because this isn't going to go to City Council.
Yes, it will.
No, it will not go to City Council.
It will on appeal.
If they appeal it, yeah.
If they appeal it. If we deny this, in essence, this vote was a denial.
Mm-hmm.
They have the right to appeal to City Council. Mr. Diaz, you had a comment. We are at discussion.
So I'm torn on this also, but like I say, Unisource does a great job for us. I think we should be able, with the help of their realtor, find some parcel of land somewhere to do what they want to do here, because they do need bigger operating headquarters. But, as our Harris said, do we want a Target or a Costco or whatever here? Maybe we do, maybe we don't. But just because they might have said no in the past doesn't mean they're going to say no all the time. We have 57,000 residents in this city, and it's actually built out. It'll be built out to about 96 to 97,000. So down the road, I would not close that door that a big retailer or multiple retailers would like that prime real estate right there, which is going to be turned over for an industrial complex. So I say we talk about it some more, as our commissioner chairman has said, and then we do another motion and see if we get this resolved. But giving that property away to that use, we might come back down the road and think, well, maybe we shouldn't have done that. And it's not like, as Jim said, it's not our, it's not our ability to give it away. So we shouldn't think of it that way, but it's just the use is really a hard one.
And I would,
Mr. Nelson.
I would disagree. I mean, everybody's coming in here saying the mall is failing, and it's not. It's not failing. That's not a true statement. The mall is actually succeeding, and
there is commerce taking place there.
Yeah, and it's harder and harder to get space in there right now. I have a space in there, so I know. And look at all the applications that are coming forth to buy these properties and to do something with it. It's not going to sit there. If Unisource doesn't buy it, it's not going to sit there for very long. Someone else is going to come with a new proposal. But I just don't feel that. I mean, we all want to help Unisource, but I don't feel that they did their homework here with how much we've been trying to protect the North Gate on the aesthetics of highway frontage here. And that's pretty much all it is. They need to come in with a standard that is going to be uniform more with the mall. The Planning and Zoning Commission, in my opinion, when we had the initial storage units come in that were highway frontage, we were sold something that didn't happen. They said it was going to be more architectural friendly, and they built cheap storage units. And so it's not the applicant's fault, but it's other people's fault that we have to be more protective of this property. And I think they did a good presentation. I'd like to help the company, but perhaps they need to do a little bit more homework on what is expected of what would actually pass in this area. And I think that we've passed along some good recommendations today. We've been open about what could possibly pass. So hopefully they can take that and maybe try again.
Mr. Morris.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I'm not sure if the applicant is still available via Zoom. They did send a chat to us asking, it says, Mr. Chairman, can we ask for a continuance of this hearing so we can work on the design? Oh, there they are now. There they are. Thank you.
Yeah, yes, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Morris.
Is it all right?
If we would be happy to continue this hearing to another one, so to give our design team, Rob Sampson, some time to take into account all the comments we heard today and try to make a better plan.
Ms. Geary, what would procedure be if the commission decided to table this?
Well, as long as it's acceptable to the department, I mean, we would have to go back and re-advertise it and treat it as it's basically a new item, but you can continue it and to a date certain, and then we would re-advertise it and come back.
Yeah. If it went to a date certain even, I don't think we even necessarily would have to. We could certainly advertise it to make sure we cover due diligence, but typically I would think if you continue it to a date certain, then anyone who's been noticed of this meeting will know that it's going on to be heard on a certain date. If it's just some future date, then of course we would need to advertise for that specific date. But if we have a date certain, so it comes down to how much turnaround time, how quickly the applicant can get things turned around if they want a specific date or if the commission wants a specific date. Otherwise, is the date uncertain, then we would have to re-advertise.
And that would need to be done by a motion.
Yes.
Mr. Diaz.
So the only concern I have, and I want to talk for my other fellow commissioners, is that I think we're sending a message if we do that all they have to do is come back with what we decided or what we discussed today, and it's going to get approved. But what if some people up here don't want that to go there? That's my concern. What if we don't want Unisource to have a industrial yard right there at that? We want them to be here, but not right there.
That's where you exercise your vote.
If you go through that process, can you make sure the sign doesn't fall down?
We are still at the table for discussion and or a motion on this item.
Motion's been made.
If we have no more motions. So what was that?
The question was whether you can make the same motion again to see after discussion whether anybody has changed their mind. And yes, you may. You don't have to, but you may.
Well, I'd like to make a motion, try it again, to deny ID number 22-2132 on a conditional use permit, and a yay vote would be a denial.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
A second.
So we have a motion by Mr. Diaz, a second by Mr. Nelson to deny item number 22-3132. Any further discussion on this item? Keep in mind, a yes vote will be for denial. Let's call for the question.
Motion is still tied.
Motion doesn't pass. So your only alternative at this point would be to appeal to City Council.
So
What?
can I clarify this? So it failed to deny, so it got approved?
No, it doesn't mean that it's approved. It just means that motion fails.
Okay.
It's a tied vote, so the motion fails.
They've basically made no motion, so it fails.
It needs to pass by a majority.
Thank you.
However, you may make any subsequent motions if you choose.
I think we're done.
I'll just ask the commission, does anybody want to make a subsequent motion? Hearing none, your recourse is to appeal to the City Council. Thank you very much. Good presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
The next item on today's agenda is ID 22-3122. This is a review and discuss the parking standards for multifamily development. Mr. Morris, and this is just, I requested this. This is just kind of an overview for those on the commission that are new.
Mr. Chairman, excuse me. Commissioners, thank you. As you mentioned, there's been an increased number of multiple family developments within the city, and the commission recently requested to review and discuss the parking standards for multiple family development. I'd like to keep this very focused discussion if we can.
And brief.
Multiple family development parking. Parking is a big topic. It's quite a big section of our city code. So if we can concentrate on the multiple family dwelling unit portion.
May I interrupt for a moment?
Certainly.
And I'm just going to state the reason that I requested this. We get a lot of questions during these applications about, is there sufficient parking? And the commissioners may not be aware that prior to these items coming to us, they have already looked at and visited the parking standards. So usually there's no problem with parking, but I just wanted to give a brief overview of where we have parking restrictions, et cetera.
Okay. Thank you for that. So the current standards, we have standards for multiple family parking, multiple family dwelling units based on the number of bedrooms in the unit. So in the RUMS and the mixed use UMS districts, It's one parking space per unit, regardless of number of bedrooms. And all spaces must be covered, all the required spaces. So one parking space per unit. In all other zoning districts, you require one parking space for each dwelling unit with one or fewer bedroom, 1.5 spaces for each unit containing more than one bedroom, and then bonus visitor parking at one space for every 5 dwelling units. And basically one space for each unit has to be a covered parking space. Now, the RUMS and the mixed-use UMS those are the areas in the uptown McCulloch area. So I'll zoom in here. So along McCulloch and Swanson and Mesquite. So the dark blue is the mixed-use UMS, and the lighter blue is the RUMS. In those zoning districts, it's based on just a total of, the minimum is one parking space, one covered parking space per dwelling unit total. The idea was that would be more compact area. We're looking for people to be walking around more downtown, more pedestrian connected. The rest of the balance of the city is the standard, not just one parking space, but based on the number of bedrooms, 1.5, and then guest parking. So that's a brief overview of our parking standards for the multiple family zoning. Open any questions you may have. Thank you.
Any questions of Mr. Morris? Mr. Nelson?
I think everything looks good. The only thing that I would add is, like, if there's 9, we had a couple that were 9 units, and we rounded down instead of rounding up. So if they had 9 units, if there's every 5 spaces, you have to have 1 additional space if they're 1 bedrooms, right?
For every 5 dwelling units, you need at least one guest
space,
parking.
right? And we had 2 that came across that were 9 dwelling units, but only required 1 space. And so the only thing that I would change is to round up instead of round down.
Instead of truncating it, so you eliminate all fractions and go down to the lower number, that's the way it is now in the parking standards. It says if it's between 1 and 2, basically, it's 1 to 1.99, you truncate it, and it goes down to 1 parking space.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so you're suggesting we would round it to the next higher or lower standard rounding. Okay.
Right. That's my only suggestion.
Any other questions or discussion?
Just want to quickly add, so when I ask questions, I know other people ask too about when we have come in front of us and we ask them about parking, we pretty much know what the parking standards and the parameters are, but just want to kind of get on because we know people bring in boats and trailers and all this other stuff, and some of these smaller mini houses we've been seeing where they have 1-car garages, maybe 1 space. That's the feasibility of they're only going to have 1 or 2 cars there is the point I think a lot of us are trying to get across. That's it.
I think a lot of that's going to come down to either the condominium association or the property management and or whoever is in charge of that particular development, making it clear that what's allowed and what is not allowed. And there are a lot of people in Havasu that don't have boats and RVs and things that may be even just wasted space that the developer pays a premium to provide parking. So if you're providing parking, that could be extra area that could be set aside for homes as opposed to parking. So the developer needs to balance that based on whatever the minimum requirements are, and then say, hey, is it worth their while to provide additional parking above and beyond? It may cut into their profit, and it may also cut into the number of units they can provide. So it's a balancing act for a developer, and I think this development code is intended to help provide additional housing options without overburdening the required parking.
So basically what we have here is a handout that will, if you guys peruse this at your leisure, will help with those questions when it comes to, is there enough parking for this project? And that's basically what I was trying to accomplish here.
Chairman,
Ms.
the
Ballard.
only question that still arises is when you're considering 1 parking space per unit, you're also then assuming that there will only be 1 adult living in that unit, that there will not be 2 adults nor 2 cars.
Well, we're assuming there's going to be 1 car per unit is what we're doing. May or may not be on target, but that's the way our parking standards read.
make it clear that one space per unit is only in the mixed use and the RUMS downtown area. The other portion, it's based on the number of bedrooms per unit in addition. So most of them is going to be more than just one space per unit unless it's a one-bedroom unit. And then citywide, it's only one parking space. But in that uptown UMS area, it's one parking space per dwelling unit, not based on number of bedrooms. So it's less of a parking requirement in the downtown area.
Anybody else? Any further discussion? Okay, well, let's open it up to the call to the public. This is the point where anybody can come and address the commission on any subject. We may not respond, but you may come and express any concerns you have with the commission. Hearing none, I'll close the call to the public. Future meetings, Mr. Morris.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, thank you. The meeting for February 2nd has been canceled. The meeting room has been taken away from us, so we don't have that meeting date available. The next regular meeting date will be February 16th.
February 16th. All right. Thank you, everybody. We are adjourned.